not agree to a cessation of hostilities with Hamas after the horrific attacks of October 7th. Calls for a ceasefire are calls for Israel to surrender to Hamas, to surrender to terrorism, to surrender to barbarism. That will not happen. Israel has been at war. Israel did not start this war. Israel did not want this war. But Israel will win this war.
His comments come as Israel pushed even further into Gaza today, nearing Gaza City. This is day 4 of what Israeli military officials are calling a, quote, extended ground operation against Hamas. They also say they plan to continue to intensify its ground operation in Gaza in the coming days, where desperation for the people living there is growing. As of yesterday, UN relief workers say more than 1 million people have been displaced, and a spokesperson for the Gaza Health Ministry say that over 8,000 people have been killed, including 3,000 children. The UN says 100 trucks a day are needed to meet humanitarian needs in Gaza, but despite promises by Israel to increase aid, just 144 trucks total have delivered supplies into Gaza since the start of the war weeks ago. Let's bring in NBC News correspondent Ellison Barber from the Israel-Gaza border. Ellison, thank you so much for being here. The White House has said they are not drawing any red lines when it comes to what Israel chooses to do. And Netanyahu is rejecting calls for a ceasefire. Given that the government in Israel seems to be feeling no external pressure to show restraint, do people there expect to see this ground invasion intensify?
Yeah, and I mean, look, that's what we've heard, I think, very clearly from the Prime Minister of Israel as well as military leaders. They say this is going to be a long conflict and this war will not end quickly. I mean, just in the last 10 minutes or so, as we were watching the skyline back here, Jake, there have been a number of explosions. There goes another one just now, flashes inside of Gaza. In a span of about 33 seconds, I counted 4 different explosions, a lot of them in kind of this little pocket right over here on the horizon. If you keep looking at it with us, you might see some as well. Tonight, we have heard less of the heavy caliber artillery firing into Gaza compared to Friday night, when Israel first acknowledged that they had forces on the ground in northern Gaza. Tonight, what we have seen a lot of are rockets fired in the direction of Gaza, most of those appearing to land. We've seen some firing out in the direction of Israeli cities, most of those appearing to be intercepted. We've also seen into Gaza what looks like flare bombs of some sort landing kind of just past the ridge where you see that little horizon of lights. It's been constant tonight, the explosions inside of Gaza. This is the northern part of Gaza. That is where Israel has said they will focus the majority of their military efforts, because they say that is where Hamas primarily operates out of. They've been a little less specific as this ground invasion has continued in terms of exactly where their forces are in northern Gaza, but Hamas and other Hamas-associated groups inside of Gaza have said that there have been a number of violent clashes in the city and the area of Beit Hanun. And also there have been some reports that Israeli tanks were around the outskirts of Gaza City. We have also heard from some of the directors of hospitals in northern Gaza talking about strikes that have struck parts of their hospital, and also just the sounds people are hearing as they are sheltering in those places. Remember, there are a number of hospitals in northern Gaza, and when Israeli officials were telling people to evacuate, that was something the World Health Organization raised as a very big problem, saying we have 30-plus hospitals in northern Gaza, patients on ventilators, patients being treated for cancer. We can't move them because they need to stay where they are, and they are in great danger as this war escalates.
Mogadishu's release marks the first time a hostage was rescued by Israel and not released as a result of negotiations with Hamas. Meanwhile, Israel has updated the number of hostages to 239. Over the weekend, negotiations to release those hostages stalled. The sticking point, according to a former U.S. official with knowledge of the negotiations, fuel deliveries into Gaza.
Hamas is holding over 200 Israeli hostages, including 33 children, holding them, terrorizing them, keeping them as hostages. Every civilized nation should stand with Israel in demanding that these hostages be freed immediately and freed unconditionally.
In Russia, dozens of people rushed an airplane arriving from Tel Aviv. The mob carrying anti-Semitic signs and chanting that they were looking for Jewish people. The region is predominantly Muslim. The local Ministry of Health says more than 20 people were hurt, 60 people have been arrested, the whole scene. And the response from Russian leadership is drawing criticism from the White House.
The West had nothing to do with this. This is just hate, bigotry, and intimidation, pure and simple. And a good leader, a decent leader, would call it out for what it is.
Abroad, both the U.S. and Ukraine have denied those assertions.